Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Steve, John, Marcia, Glorianne, Greg, Chief. Almost all the gang's here.
I have started the live stream.
You guys getting ready for Thanksgiving? Close. Go anywhere exciting for Thanksgiving?
No, but I'm eyeing the turkeys that have been camping in my yard, the 20 turkeys that I chase every single day out of my yard.
Looking for your bow and arrow? Yeah.
I have one, but yeah,
I had a friend who actually did that and would shoot them out of the trees.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's sort of like fish in a barrel, I guess, huh?
I wouldn't want to defeather them though.
No.
Okay, the gang's all here.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
Good,
Hello.
thank you.
So it is almost 6 o'clock. I guess it's close enough to 6. Oh, whoa. Hello. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Moraga-Orinda Fire District regular board meeting for November 17th, 2021. We have a 6 p.m. closed session followed by a 7 p.m. open session, and we will begin shortly, as in right now. So, Marcia, can we take a roll call?
Director Bates,
Here.
Director Danziger,
Here.
Director Donner,
Here.
Director Jex,
Here.
President Jorgens.
Here. Okay, item 2.0, we're going to open public comment for items that are on the closed agenda, items 3.1 through 3.3.
We do not have any attendees and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, then I will close the public comment on items 3.1 on the closed agenda, 3.1 through 3.3. And then I guess we will adjourn to the closed session. And again, the open session will begin again at 7 p.m. See you all there.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello.
Oh,
So I'm gonna do this. Smaller. Smaller. Make this bigger.
Hello?
Ding dong.
Hello. Okay, according to my clock, it is now 7 o'clock. I think we have all of our board members here. So I will reconvene the Moraga-Orinda Fire District Board of Directors meeting, and we will go on to item 4, reconvening the meeting and calling the meeting to order. Marcia, could you give us a roll call, please?
Director Bates,
Here.
Director Danziger,
Here.
Director Donner,
Here.
Director Jex,
Here.
President Jorgens.
Here. Okay, thank you. I'm going to just close that real quick. So there is nothing to report from the closed section items 3.1 through 3.3. So we can move on to item 6, which is open public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
We do not have any attendees and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, so I will close the public comment on the items not on the agenda. And we can move on to the consent agenda, items 7.1 through 7.9. We can open public comment on those items.
We've not received any written public comment.
Okay, so I will close the public comment on those items 7.1 through 7.9. And now we have some board deliberation on 7.1, which is a resolution to re-ratify the finding and determining of a need to continue holding remote meetings by teleconference. I guess, Chief, are we supposed to do these all at once, or can we do them, do we need to do them separately?
On consent, sir, you can move the consent
The
calendar.
whole thing at once, okay. So there are some action items, though, including the dissolution of the Ad Hoc Fire Prevention Joint Committee with the City of Harinda and the town of Moraga.
Yes, sir. If there's items you'd like to consider separately, it'd be appropriate to pull them from consent, pass the remainder of consent, and then consider those items separately.
Do we have any other comments, questions? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion. Do you want a motion for the entire consent calendar, or you want to
Yes.
pull the 7.1 and 7.9?
Only if you feel, only if somebody feels we need to pull them.
It is not required. If the board, if it's the pleasure of the board, you can move all items and second them and vote on them as a group.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve items 7.1 through 7.9 on the consent agenda.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, Marcia, I'm sorry, can you take a roll call?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jorgens.
Aye. Okay, the motion to approve the consent agenda passes unanimously. So on the regular agenda, item 8.1, annual audit and annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Good evening, directors. The district's annual comprehensive financial report has been completed. The financial statements have been audited by the district's auditor of Eide Bailly LLP. Tonight, we have in attendance Ahmad Garibay, who's an audit partner with Eide Bailly, to discuss the results of the audit. At this point, I was going to turn it over to Mr. Garibay. However, I don't see him in attendance yet.
Maybe we can let him come a little later if you have anything else to say about it. Nothing else to say about it. Okay. He did have a written, they did have a letter saying what they felt. Were there things we were going to add to that?
Usually what he does, he kind of goes over the highlights and explains the audit process and the results of their audit. And he's supposed to be on, he confirmed he was supposed to be here. So
Can we
I
just
reached out.
delay our action on this and go on to the next thing and come back to it when he comes on?
Yes,
sir.
you can pass the item.
Okay,
I recommend that, sir.
that's great. Let's do that. So then we will jump on quickly to item 8.2, asset allocations and investment guidelines documents for the pension trust and for the other post-employment benefit trust. Orion, Chief, one of you guys must be wanting to talk
All right,
about
sir.
this.
I'm flipping through my stack of paper here.
I know we got ahead.
All right, good evening, directors. As you know, the district contracts with public agency retirement services for pension trust and post-employment benefits trust services. PARS provides an IRS Section 115 approved irrevocable trust for the district to use to fund other post-employment benefits and to fund a pension rate stabilization trust account. On September 15th, 2021, the board directed staff to place the topic of asset allocation of the PARS trust accounts on a future agenda. Asset allocation ranges are determined by the board as part of the investment guidelines document, which is included as attachment A. The current investment guidelines document authorizes the following, both allocations for cash, fixed income, and equity for both the pension trust and for the OPEB trust, with a target rate of return of 7.25 and an investment objective of capital appreciation with high risk tolerance for both the Pension Stabilization Trust and the OPEB Trust Fund. According to the Government Finance Officers Association, best practices for asset allocation for defined benefit plans, diversifying an investment portfolio by including asset categories with investment returns that increase or decrease under different market conditions can protect a defined benefit plan against significant investment losses. The GFOA recommends a portfolio be diversified among asset categories. At the June 30th, 2021, at June 30, 2021, the district OPEB plan was 20% funded. The district's pension plan was 89.6% funded. As was discussed at the previous meeting, decreasing the cash and fixed income ranges would result in increasing the equity range, which would also increase the risk and volatility. Highmark Capital provided an analysis report that assumes a 100% equity allocated portfolio shown in attachment E. Based on the report, the expected return is 7.35, which is an increase of 0.71% above the current estimate of 6.64%. However, the volatility of the district portfolio would also increase to 16.69 from the current volatility estimate of 12.53%. To summarize, if the district were to change the portfolio to 100% equities, the expected rate of return would increase by 0.71%, and the volatility would increase 4.16%. As was previously discussed, given that this is an asset allocation with a buy and hold for a distant horizon, it certainly would be a decision that the board could make. But we also have a representative here from PARS who can provide their opinion and answer any questions the board may have with regard to asset allocations. As a reminder, the discussion that's being presented for the board is at the board's direction to give the board an opportunity to provide different input. Should the board choose to decide to change the asset allocations, primarily to increase the expected rate of return. With that, Andrew, I'd hand it over to you for any comments you'd like to make and then questions from the board.
Gosh, you pretty much laid it out there, Chief, in very succinct format. Before we enter in discussions, I just want to put out there that I serve the board and I give you my best input, best recommendations, but ultimately the board will make decisions, and certainly I'm happy to implement anything that the board decides. And yeah, Chief, great job in terms of providing an overview. I didn't provide any exhibits for this meeting specifically, but I know staff put some attachments together on item 8.2. So feel free to fire questions away, and yeah, let's have a good discussion.
President Jurgens, I have a question.
Sure.
Andrew, I was just wondering, similar type plans like ours, I mean, just generally, does our asset allocation, kind of in keeping with others? Is it pretty standard? I mean, just how would you view ours presently?
Well, let's take the plan separately.
Okay.
OPEB, I'll say OPEB, you're what, 20% funded. You might be a little bit on the more aggressive side than other plans. I think that there's maybe of our relationships in the PARS platform, maybe 20% have 15 to 20%, somewhere in that ballpark, have selected capital appreciation, which is 75% stocks, 25% bond and cash. With the 20% funding ratio, I mean, frankly, I can't say I wish, but
Yeah.
I do try to encourage plans in the early innings to take a little bit more risk. And not often is that really embraced by boards or decision makers. So to answer your question, for OPEB, you would be a little bit more on the aggressive side. For pension pre-funding, you certainly would be more on the aggressive side. I think there's only like maybe 5 to 10% of the clients that have selected capital appreciation for pension pre-funding. Many of our clients have a much shorter time horizon. Not that the pension liability is short, but they come into the relationship with us sort of with the notion of, hey, look, in my fiscal year 23, 24, I got a big donut hole in my budget that I know pension costs are going to be going up because, well, in most cases, CalPERS is lowering their discount rate. I don't know exactly how I'm going to fill that donut hole in fiscal year 23, 24, but we do got $2.5 million now. I'm going to give it to you, Andrew, Highmark, PARS, but really you're only going to be managing it for a 2 to 3 year period, maybe a 4-year period of time. And because those clients have a shorter time horizon for our relationship, the investment recommendation is much more conservative. So you do truly, I think in both plans, you do truly take and adopt a longer term horizon, which on many levels I appreciate. And well, I wish other agencies out there would do the same.
Well, thank you.
Well, I have some, but if anybody else has any questions, I don't want to jump in.
I'm just going to make a comment. This is Dr. Jex. I was reading, I think, today or a news article with regards to the state are adopting a much more aggressive, in fact, alternative investments, which would be much more risky.
Yeah, I've well in concert with
CalPERS, that they were even into alternative investments with regards to like Bitcoin and stuff.
I haven't heard the Bitcoin, but certainly I've heard their lean towards maybe taking on more exposure to alternatives. And I think that their experience and our experience is kind of similar from the standpoint of what has Highmark done over the last couple of years? We've lowered our expected rates of return for stocks and bonds and cash for that matter. And it's not like CalPERS is going to be wildly dissimilar. So they've done a similar. They fostered a similar game plan on their side. But they still have an investment objective that they have to achieve. So when they look at the options on their menu, what will give them low or good diversification benefits and a high expected rate of return? Well, alternatives for one, at least on paper, might serve them in that pursuit. It could end badly or it could end really well. But yeah, they're in this low interest rate environment, and I know we've for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had discussions about, well, geez, why do you have any cash or why do you have any bonds in the portfolio? And it's not like I'm trying to sell you the great merits of 1 to 2% potential upside in it, but it does protect one from some downside. One of the things that we do have going for us is that, well, all right, well, what is the other 80% of our portfolio in? It's in higher returning asset class categories. CalPERS, even with their alternative exposure, they're probably similar in terms of on par, in terms of the risk exposure that we're currently positioning the portfolio under. So we're all kind of in the same predicament, I guess, Director Jex, is that it's going to be hard to get that 6 to 7% rate of return, and we're all kind of stretching for additional risk to obtain that return.
Well, normally if you're having cash, and particularly at the levels that we've got, it's because of liquidity issues. we don't have the liquidity requirement or need based on what we're doing in terms of what and how we're funding and the period in which we're doing it, which is long term. And so that's, I mean, I can see maybe, you know, some bonds, but I certainly don't see any reason carrying cash of the balance percentage wise that we have when we could be earning, even if it's 2%, 3%.
Yeah, and so
Nothing.
yeah, it is nothing, sir. I can't I can't win a debate on that. I guess from our standpoint, you know, with 5% as policy and 1% as kind of, you know, an underweight, that would be a 4% underweight. We would look at that as de minimis, but could we lower the cash allocation? Sure. I suppose. You know, we do like to have cash for some type of transactions, but you know, I would say we change the asset allocation in some way, shape, or form. Maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 times throughout the course of the year. So, you know, could I keep it maybe a little bit lower? Yeah, I mean, we would always have to a little something in cash, but if our policy as a firm was maybe to target 1% and you wanted it a little bit lower, yeah, I guess I could keep it a little bit lower than that.
So I saw a couple of things. I looked back on, I think it was actually last time's presentation on page 33 in section 7.7a. And you have the title for the group, the heading was real rate of return on assets, and cash was at 2.54%. So real rate of returns means after, you know, taking away inflation. So it's what you make after inflation. I'm shocked that you can make 2.5% before inflation or including inflation, especially when I think your inflation forecast is a little below that. So I guess for me, cash, when you don't have a need for cash other than to facilitate transactions when you're switching portfolios, you know, there's a little bit of cash you have when you don't match the day you trade things back and forth, but that should be pretty minimal. The other thing I guess I had a challenge with today's historically low, you know, bond rates, there's kind of only one way they can go. They can't go anything but the rate of return or the coupon being higher, which means the value of your bonds, if you hold them today, goes down. So I just have, you know, having it's roughly 21% of our portfolio, I think, is in bonds at the moment. And, you know, first off, they earn a pretty bad return. In general, it's not obvious to me that in the last 15 years, bonds actually traded that much differently than the stock market has necessarily. In other words, they've been a lot more correlated than they used to be. They used to be, you know, offsetting each other, and they don't do that so much anymore. And then we also have, you recently have put us into things, or proposed putting us into things called emerging markets. And I guess given that all of our liabilities are in dollars and domestically oriented, I'm not sure that I think that is a wise allocation of, you know, if you want to talk about adding risk, there are a lot of bizarre things that can happen to emerging markets that don't happen to more mature markets. And so I would view those as being really volatile and unpredictable. So I personally would, if you wanted to ask my opinion about the portfolio, I'd get out of the emerging market things. I'd get at least mostly out of the debt, and I wouldn't have any cash, the minimum cash you can have.
Yeah, you got me a little flustered on the first thing, the real rate of return. What was that? What were you citing?
The title of that section, you know, sort of that paragraph was long-term real rate of return.
Oh, was that something that I wrote? Is that verbiage?
No, it was on section 7.7a in our packet, page 33 of the presentation. I think it might have been from last time, but I think it was called the real rate of return on assets, it was, you know, when we were talking about what the various flavors were, the things we could choose. And anyway, but whether or not that was an accurate number, my point is still, I wouldn't have any more money than you had to just to make facilitate transactions in cash, because we have no need for years and years and years. Volatility isn't something that should bother us, as John pointed out, because we aren't going to need the cash on a short-term basis, or any money on a short-term basis that we know of. And unlike, CalPERS and those people who every single day pay out cash, so or pay out, benefits, and we don't do that.
Right. Yeah, and so certainly, I can keep a little bit less in cash if that pleases the board. And I started with Highmark back in '97, and believe it or not, there were a few periods of time where we could probably get 4 or 5% on our money markets. So there are other periods of time when cash can generate something, but as Inspector
It's
Jack,
by definition
you
less
said
than equities do.
You said at the same time. I mean, cash is getting zero. So cash and bonds today, it is a hedge, but it's really not all that great of a hedge. I will go like this, and I will agree with you that it's not that great of a hedge. Unless of course the equity market goes down 33% over a 6-week period of time in February and March of 2020, and then all of a sudden, getting zero looks, fairly attractive versus, the 80% of the portfolio.
Yeah, but you also have some high coupon bonds in there, right? What happened to those during that same time? They probably went to zero instead of going down 33%.
No. So the high yield bonds,
Right.
the high yield bonds probably went down 5 or 6%. It's a small amount of the portfolio, but yeah, that certainly went down in value. That did not. Well, it went down less than stocks did, but we weren't certainly in the black on that. Yeah, and so certainly point well taken. Emerging market equities, it is more volatile. I think you'll probably saw in the most recent quarterly report where two stock categories were up. I think large cap was up 0.5%, and REITs were up maybe almost 0.7, 0.8%. And emerging markets were down about 8%. So you're absolutely right on that front. Emerging markets are a much more volatile asset class, and so too, I suppose small cap equities are as well. We do like to have some exposure in emerging markets and some exposure to small caps. We did reduce a little bit our emerging market exposure equities, about 1.5–2%. We still would wish to retain a position in there because there are other markets or there are other times when those markets will perform possibly better than domestic markets. But
I guess the way I would look at that is if you invest in the S&P 500, which part of your portfolio is in, I'm going to bet that 100% of those people have assets in the emerging markets and do business in the emerging markets. So you're effectively getting some of that benefit by investing in the S&P 500. It's about as diversified as you can get, other than small caps and things, but that internationally and industry-wise and everything else. And so it effectively already includes at least a good aspect of the emerging markets. But the pandemic can affect those kinds of markets dramatically more than it does the U.S. The global economic downturns, usually those are by far the most volatile markets. The political things happen.
Exactly, and so all those reasons are why we do, as we go into it, we temper the amount that we by policy would go into emerging markets, and even if we get giddy and excited about emerging market potential, an overweight to emerging markets for us would be much less than an underweight to large caps. Yes, many of those S&P 500 multinational corporations, I don't want to say all of them, but let's throw out a number, 80–90% do some type of business with some emerging markets, if not 95 to 100%. But it is a different dynamic investing in Microsoft, who does a lot of business with China, versus dealing with an underlying Chinese company directly.
Which doesn't follow gap accounting and all those fun things people are finding out about, and that are completely dependent on Chinese policy to decide that, hey, by the way, your business is worth half as much as it was yesterday because we changed our policy. Happens all the time.
But
I have very little confidence in sometimes what is published as far as emerging market financial information.
As do most of the Fortune 500 companies, and they don't trust it either.
I had too many experiences early on in my career with, getting financial information where there was just little or no validity to it.
So again, my theory would be minimize cash. If you want to have a little bit of debt, that's okay, but I wouldn't be in emerging markets either.
Hey, Craig, I mean, cash just slightly over 1%, isn't that already minimized?
It's already, yeah, again, I'm not worried
I mean-
about that, but I'm just, but that isn't what their policy is. That just
Right.
happens to be where they are.
Okay, so you're thinking we actually change the policy right now? It's, it says, what, 5%?
Right.
Yeah, 5%. So you're thinking actually change the policy to maybe, what, 2%, something like that, or?
Yeah, other than, again, I don't know how accurately you trade things in and out and flip your portfolio around. And if that generates cash now and then, you don't want to have to be out of policy because you had 2 days worth of cash someday,
Yeah, it's a small inconvenience, but yeah, I mean, and Director Danziger, I think that's kind of maybe where we're headed with this discussion, because I mean, I appreciate your feedback, and your real world experiences are certainly valid and very real in terms of, your experiences with emerging markets. But the portfolio that I present to you is really our firm's best thinking. It's not this guy who lives in Clayton who manages your money. It's really our firm. So if you do want to put ceilings on emerging market exposure, on cash exposure, we really do need to rewrite the guidelines to reflect the spirit that the board wishes for me to implement an investment policy based on.
Andrew, would I'm just, I don't know we're going to do this, but just for an example, if we change investment policy, I'm just talking cash right now, to say 2.5%, would that impact the way you do business? Would that be a negative impact on how you manage our account?
Yeah, the only way that it would really impact would be if we're doing a rebalancing and I'm moving in between an ETF and or a mutual fund. Mutual funds trade T+1, ETFs trade T+2. So if I was buying a mutual fund that needed the money now, but selling an ETF to raise funds, and I was doing more than 2.5%, I would have to do one transaction on one day, do the other transaction the next day, which it's not a huge inconvenience. It's just something I write in my planner and do one trade one day, one trade the other day.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
I'm not as worried about the cash as long as we, 5% cap on it, as I am the emerging markets and the debt. Because at the moment, I think it's more than 20% debt, right? Like 20.1% or something.
Yeah.
And I'll point out, I do have one client, oddly enough, Contra Costa County's OPEB plan, where they limit me on emerging market exposure to 3%. Now, granted, their equities are capped at 6%, so 3% to 6%, 60%. I'm sorry, they're capped at 60% equities, so 3% of the portfolio. So it's a little bit different ratio, but they are one client that has significantly reduced how much they would wish Highmark to invest in emerging markets. So you would not be the only one out there that has asked for some type of lower ceiling.
And right now we don't have any mention of a cap for emerging markets, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
We have, just by policy, I'm gonna throw out 15%, but I'll double check and get back to you on that.
So with the just so I know, so within equities, I think I see it right here. So within equities, there's a cap on the different types of investments, right? Is that what you're saying?
I take that back. So
Yeah.
current policy, international,
Yeah.
which would be developed and emerging markets, 0 to 25%.
Right. I see that. Yeah, I see it
So,
now myself.
And I'll offer up then in the revision of this document that is probably going to be coming in the next couple of days, I would imagine. We would break out emerging markets for the district. I assume you'd want me to do that. So
That'd be great. And for me, you might as well draft it in. We should give you some guidance tonight, I would think.
Yeah.
Do that. And so that and the debt at the moment is personally, again, we don't need the money right now. I don't think that if you don't need the cash short term, sort of by definition, debt has lower rates of return long over the last 100 years than equities do. So
I agree.
Well, yeah, and so this is one of those things that, how much risk do you really need to take in pursuit of the objective? The chief laid out just once again an excellent overview. If we go to basically an all stock portfolio, even if we allow 2 to 3% in cash and we have 97 to 98% in equities and eliminate that, we do in theory, based on our assumptions, pick up 0.7% annualized rate of return. But we do get a bevy full of additional risk. And I know 4% standard deviation isn't really a number that too many people, and probably even including myself, can really wrap our arms around unless we do experience a period of time where market suffers a significant downside volatility. But you definitely go into a different zip code of risk with elimination, if you will, of cash and bonds. But once again,
well, you go into a different definition of short-term risk, but not necessarily long-term risk. And I would argue that where we are today with bonds, there's only one side, only downside to having bonds right now. If we didn't know which way interest rates were going to go, they can't go down because they're already at zero. And unless you want to be Japan, they can't go negative, or maybe Switzerland too. I think they have negative for cash also. But they can't go down. And everybody's the conventional wisdom is at least they're going to go up a little bit, maybe not a lot, but a little bit. So that means the value of your bond goes down. You aren't allowed to short things. So
you are right. You are right. So a 2-year forecast. We don't have an official 2-year forecast, but we can certainly create one right here on the fly because it's not going to be too hard. Because you nailed it a second ago. Your return is going to be your yield to maturity on your bonds plus interest rate movement impacting the price side of things. You're probably looking at a downside -2, -2.5 over the next 2 years, and an upside maybe 1.5. Now, all right, and you know what? I'm gonna side with you. I think we'll probably look over the next 12 months if the Fed raises twice, a negative return on fixed income.
So why would you want to have any of that in your portfolio?
No, let me finish. But we can drop 2 to 3% in the span of a couple hours on the equity market. So yeah, I realize, going back to what I said a second ago, it's not much of a hedge. But if the equity market were to significantly drop 25, 35%, it would be beneficial to the portfolio not having everything drop 25.
But how much did the 10-year bond change in the last month? Went from 1.25 to 1.65.
Yeah.
How much is that? What percent is that?
A
lot.
0.4 and
yeah, so that's 40%. Oops.
And so this is that dynamic that we're looking at over the next couple of years as hopefully yields rise up a little bit. There will come some point where investing in fixed income might be.
That's fine, but I agree. Later on, maybe it's going to make sense to go back into some bonds. But right now, I only see downside, not upside.
I see modest downside as well. Okay. So we have more in common than we have dissimilarities.
I think that's been true for a long time.
Okay. All right.
We can always change it if opportunity comes or a requirement comes or whatever it may be. And so for the next couple of years, until things settle, I think it's a move we ought to make. in terms of policy.
Okay, give me some type of guidance, what you're, because I'm sure you guys have talked about this beforehand. Are you?
We can't, by
leaning-
definition, we can't have done that, don't forget.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, we have to talk about it in public, so you're it. This is it. We
Oh.
can't talk about it privately.
I wasn't trying to do a gotcha. Okay. But nobody got you there. Okay, so I mean, I threw the math at you. You get a 0.7% pickup in return, a lot of more volatility. I'm happy to come back before the end of the month, if not sooner, with a pro forma policy recommendation change where you know, maybe we cap cash at 3%. If you feel it's prudent to eliminate the fixed income, we can do that. And run it basically on an all equity portfolio for OPEB. And I know we haven't really addressed the pension side of things, but you guys are really in such solid position. And I don't want to, well, I'm going to say it this way. $5.5 million, or actually it's 5.7 million now, of assets. I think that's, you know, maybe takes you over the 90% threshold. So you're solidly funded. If you don't need these assets in the near term, if you're not looking to pay off a tranche with Cicera or reimbursing yourself for pension expenses, I guess we could do this. I guess maybe I'm just trying to map my personal maybe risk aversion.
That's the time you should do it. When you can't afford to do it is when you're going to need the money and you can't afford to lose it. This is the time I don't want to frame it that way. We can afford the risk today if you would view that there's more risk, I guess is the way I would look at it. If you're already 80 or 90% better, don't forget that 90% changed dramatically in the last year because Cicera, you know, and the whole world had a really good year, a couple of years. You know, it wasn't that many years ago that we weren't anywhere near that situation.
Right. Yeah, I would think we're not going to be having any calls from Terrace in the
Cicera for years.
Yeah, because if my recollection on the bond or on the disclosure, there's deferred inflow for the next 5 years, offsetting any.
Yeah, they smooth things so much. We have a fair amount of time to come up with the money we need.
All right, well, I wouldn't want to rely on smoothing necessarily if I was in your shoes. But here's what I can do: the same policy that I create for OPEB, I can create for pension, and present it to your board, you, and we can take a look at it and see if it works.
You know, if you're gonna do that, I think we have to get a consensus from the board here. I'm not in
agree. I think
favor.
that'd be healthy.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of making our a fixed income section 0. I don't think.
I agree. It doesn't have to be 0, but I don't think it should be over 20%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so
But I personally, I would say, you know, 10%, and I would say 0 emerging markets, and, you know, we'll pick a number for cash, you know, 2, 3, 4, whatever percent. You know,
Yeah.
small.
okay. Yeah, that sounds okay to me too. Something along those lines.
I'm in favor of that as well.
Did you hear Greg? Do you have a thought about that?
Yep, sounds good.
So Andrew, you want us to go back over that, or did you?
I do, because I was clenching my teeth on these 0% emerging.
Yeah, no, we're not there. We're not at 0.
Well, for emerging, well, for me, again, there's a difference between international and emerging for me.
How
International.
about 5% emerging markets?
Well,
Capped. 0 to 5.
okay.
I think that I'd approve of that. I'd agree with that.
0 to 5 for that, and
Yeah.
and maximum of 10 for the debt, and 0 to 5 for cash, if that's what you want. But I guess it's where it is now. But try to minimize that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me play around with the math. Not play around with
Sounds
the math.
good.
I take that back. Let me work the math and make sure it adds up to 100%. And I think I can get you a draft, well, before Thanksgiving, certainly.
Okay, and the other thing, just as a quick comment about what, and again, not to throw any darts at CalPERS, because they got a lot of really smart people there, but the way you framed it anyway was, gee, they have an investment target and they have to kind of increase their risk to be able to get there. That's, in my experience, the wrong way to go about it. You need to figure out what kind of risk you like and what you think a reasonable return is. And if you have to adjust your target, then you change your target, rather than just saying, hey, I got to try something more creative and take more risk to get to a high number. That's shot a lot of people in the head, not in the foot, in the head.
And Andrew, you said, you could get something quick. We'd have to discuss this at a board meeting, and we're not scheduled to have another board meeting for another month. So,
Well, no, potentially till January.
oh, right. So I don't think we need it next
No,
week.
don't go kill yourself on that.
Yeah.
Take some time.
It's a good time of year for me to do it. So I'll
Okay.
I'll do it and send it to staff, and
Okay.
next board meeting, we can review it.
Great. Thank you for your great help.
You bet. My pleasure.
We
So
need
now
to
I guess
open
we actually,
public
now that we had the
comment.
presentation, we have to ask if there's public comment on that also.
So we've not received any written public comment, and we do not have any hands raised.
Okay, so I'll close the public comment on 8.2. Then we go to item 8.3, the Q1 financial update and budget review for fiscal year 2022.
Is President Jorgens, is the auditor back with us, or?
He
Oh,
is. He's on.
Oh, he is.
there.
Oh, great. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
didn't see that.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Gloria, I'll let you take the floor back then. We'll go back to 8. Was it 8.1?
Yes.
Okay, one.
Oh, quick question. You don't need me anymore, right? Or-
Yeah, yes. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, board. Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thanks. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
So back to item 8.1 of the audit. So this evening, we have Ahmad Garibay, who is audit partner with Ide Bailey, who will review the results of the audit. So Ahmad, if you would please present.
Good evening, Amon.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. This is the annual financial statements of the district. Scope of the audit is that the financial statements are it is a process that we typically split into 3 phases. The interim phase, the final phase, and then the reporting phase. During the interim phase, it is a process in which we look at the internal controls, the manner that you process receipts, disbursements, payroll, some compliance testing as well that we do during that phase. And then as soon as management closes the book, it is a process in which we confirm the balances. It's a confirmation process. We confirm your cash, your receivables, your property taxes, all the your accounts are reported on the financial statement. Then we work with the district on the reporting phase, making sure that these financial statements are in compliance with the reporting requirements. They follow them GASB or Government Accounting Standards Board standards, and we opine on these financial statements at the end of the audit. We also, during those phases, we connect with members of the Audit Committee, and we did that, I think, a couple of times during the year, in which we talk about the audit plan and, areas that we solicit feedback from the members of the Audit Committee. And we tailor some of these audit procedures based on what we work with the district and the Audit Committee on. I'm pleased to let you know that the financial statements are fairly stated, and we issued what we call an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. We did not encounter any difficulties in the performance of the audit, and we had no adjustments to the financial statements. Management had been very helpful in making sure that we receive all the information that we needed, and we are submitting this report to you for approval. And with that, I'll be happy to take any.
Any of the board have any questions?
Just going to make a comment. Steve and I met with the auditor after the audit was finished and went over a series of questions, and some of which you just mentioned. And we're satisfied, I think, that we can proceed to approve the audited financial statements. Thank you, Ahmad.
I'd like to say thank you to Ahmad and this and our own staff. I mean, this is a thorough financial statement, and the results were very positive. So thank you to all.
Great. Thank you, Ahmad, and because I know, this is, and again, thank you to Gloria Ann too, and your staff, because it's this is always a tough time of year to make sure you get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And obviously, you've done a good job of that again. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess in your business, it's putting and ticking instead of dotting and crossing, but same concept. So do we have any public comment on this 8.1?
Do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
So do we actually approve these then? Or is there any, do we have any discussion among the board? I mean, they are what they are. Does the board then approve these?
It is on your agenda as an approval item.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the,
I move we approve the audited financial statements and annual comprehensive report for 2021.
oh, this includes it, and we're including the annual, the comprehensive, the CAFR, as we usually call it, at the same time. Okay. Because I know we have to approve that.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead. Mike seconded.
Okay.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jorgens.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ahmad. So now we go on to item 8. Oops. Item 8.4, the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the district of and
8.3.
I'm sorry, did I get ahead of myself?
Yes.
Sorry. So the Q1 financial update and budget review for, I thought we, okay, for 2022.
Good evening, directors. I have a short presentation tonight. So if we could get those slides up, please, Marcia.
I am pulling that up right now.
Thank you. All right, so a financial update has been prepared through the end of the first quarter. This update covers the period July 1, 2021 through September 30. Next slide, please. The budget adopted in June of 2021 projected a general fund surplus of $744,000. The projected surplus based on financial information through Q1 is $1 million. Next slide, please. Revenue is summarized on the left side of the slide. Property tax revenue is projected to meet budget. Based on Q1 results, ambulance revenue is projected to exceed budget $1.1 million. This is an uncertain revenue category due to volatility due to COVID. We'll continue to monitor ambulance revenue throughout this year, and I have a slide that looks at it more closely toward the end of the presentation. Strike team revenue through Q1 is projected to exceed budget $189,000. There's also uncertainty in this revenue category. And again, I have another slide later on in the presentation for this. Plan review revenue is projected less than budget $54,000 due to a reduction in plans submitted to the district. The right-hand side of the slide details expenditures. Salaries are projected less than budget $325,000, and retirement contributions are projected less than budget $217,000 due to 6 vacant or unpaid firefighter paramedic positions. Negotiated salary increases have been included in the projected amounts, but they had not been paid as of September 30, so they are projections only for purposes of this report tonight. Staffing overtime will exceed budget due to increased leave usage and due to the 6 vacant firefighter positions. Finally, strike team overtime costs which correlate with revenue on the left, are projected to exceed budget 170,000 due to the volume of activity. Next slide, please.
Okay, can I ask, is it okay if we do them as we go? Otherwise, I'm never going to remember.
Certainly, please do.
So the strike team revenues for this quarter, which is the first quarter, we're good. But at some point along, because we had a relatively early end to the fire season, are we now projecting that that's going to sort of stop and we're going to in the future be under budget?
The projections were based on all of the strike team activity that we knew about through the point when I wrote the report, which was about mid-October. Well, actually probably more toward the end of October. So pretty much everything that's happened. So kind of to date. So there could potentially be strike team activity in the spring, before June 30 again. So, but I've just done what we know at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Lorianne, question on that slide, this is Director Jex. The overtime was to cover what that's not strike team overtime.
Correct. The overtime exceeding budget 1.1 million is staffing overtime, not strike team.
And salaries are less, so the overtime is greater than the salaries were reduced. Salaries were less than budget because we're understaffed. And the overtime is greater than the salaries under budget.
By a lot,
By
a factor
a lot.
of 3.
7, yeah.
Well, Director Jex, you have to cover with overtime for the vacancies we have. So you don't pay them the salary, but we cover it with the overtime.
Right.
The overtime.
Let me just say, overtime is cheaper than hiring to bring it up to staff.
Well, that's the theory, but this doesn't appear to be showing that. Because this says we have 1.1 million of extra overtime and only $325,000 of savings from not having those 3 people or 6 people.
Yes.
So even though we have a loading that's almost 100%, so let's say it's $600,000 versus 1.1 million, it should have been 1.2 million in savings and 1.1 million in overtime because it's supposed to be cheaper.
Well, yes, sir. But that, if you were strictly looking at if the analysis was done saying if we had those 6 additional or 5 additional firefighters, then salary would have matched budget. Overtime still would have exceeded budget because overtime, in addition to those folks, leave usage, long-term injury, et cetera, there are a number of other items that go into the overtime budget. And particularly with COVID, we have seen a significant increase in leave usage.
Okay, so it's
beyond what we budgeted.
Yes, sir. Okay. We budgeted, it's a backward looking historical model, what we budgeted from. And that obviously in the current times, backward looking things are not very effective.
So that cost us, we're $500,000 over, at least $500,000 over budget because of that then.
Yes, sir.
Because otherwise it should have been, like I say, 325 plus 217 plus some other random numbers, but it's roughly the double the 325 because we have 180 or 187%, salary plus other costs.
And as you recall from last month's presentation, it showed leave usage going back to for 2019, 2020, 2021 year to date. There's a significant increase in leave usage. We've also had several long-time injuries that have resulted in vacancies that had to be filled with overtime.
Okay, great. Thanks, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
This graph reflects general fund revenue by month. The orange line shows budgeted revenue. The green line, which is difficult to see, but it's underneath the orange line, and that's the actual revenue, which is trending slightly higher than the budget for the first 3 months of the new fiscal year. The red line illustrates the prior year revenue by month. Next slide, please. This slide depicts general fund expenditures by month. The green line illustrates the first 3 months of the current fiscal year, and it's below the orange line, which is the budget. The red line represents the prior year general fund expenditures by month. Next slide. This graph is the more detail on the ambulance revenue. The vertical bars show the number of transports by month for the current fiscal year, and the orange bar is the prior fiscal year transports. You can see on the left side of the graph how the blue columns are higher than last year, so meaning there's more ambulance transports, which has resulted in increased revenue, which is illustrated in the gray line. So that line is trending higher than the yellow line, which is last year, and higher than the blue line, which is the budget. Next slide, please.
So when we budgeted for that, did we budget, because last year we know was low for ambulance, for runs, but how did it compare? How did we budget relative to like 2019?
Let's see. Marcia, can you go back to that prior slide? Okay, because last year 985,000 was the current year budget 985,000. All right, so which was conservative. And then the prior year that was hot was more than that.
So even at 20, it was more than that. Oh, well, I guess it was half 19 and half 20. Yeah, okay.
Right, March.
So that really only included a few months, the early months of COVID, but were the worst months of COVID though.
It was the last 3 months of the FY were the first 3 months of COVID.
Right, I keep forgetting they're on not a calendar year basis.
All right, next slide, please. So this details the strike team activity for the last 6 years. The blue line shows strike team revenue. The orange line is a strike team overtime expense. The gray columns represent the surplus from strike team activity, which has gone into the general fund over the last 6 years. As you can see, the surplus has fluctuated significantly each year. We'll continue to monitor strike team activity as we move through this new fiscal year.
So it looks like it's a good thing we budgeted kind of the average over the last 6 years rather than the 2021 number. Okay.
Next slide, please. This graph details current year cash flow compared to the prior year. The district started the fiscal year with $15.7 million in unrestricted cash and investments. Next slide. The district started the year with $12 million in general fund unrestricted fund balance. The projected surplus would increase the unrestricted fund balance to $13 million, which would exceed the fund balance policy minimum, but be less than the goal of 50%. Next slide. The Capital Projects Fund had a projected deficit of $506,000 due to several budgeted capital purchases. The Debt Service Fund has a planned use of reserves of $2.1 million due to the final year of the pension obligation bonds. The pension obligation bonds will be paid in full on July 1 of 2022. Next slide.
Lorianne,
Yes.
on the capital, the 500, that's not, I think we had some grants, 2 grants that were in the financial statements. The capital fund, that's not the same number. I'm not talking about the same.
Right.
That would not end up with a deficit. It just would be, we received it 1 year and spent it this year.
Right, that is part of, that was for the solar that's being installed at the
Right.
state. So that is some of it, $300,000, yes. So the plan for this year is that staff will present 4 quarterly financial updates again to the board. So the next one will be at the mid-year budget review, which is scheduled for February of 2022. This concludes the presentation.
Great, thank you. Any questions, more questions? I'll open the public comment for 8.3 then. Oh, sorry.
I just have one really basic question. I'm just not clear on this. Gloria Ann, could you tell me what is non-secured property tax revenue?
The secured property tax revenue is
Right.
when it's based on property. So
Yeah.
for instance, your house and so
Yeah,
forth.
I
So
knew
then-
that. What-
Right, unsecured is basically when it's on like boats and airplanes,
Okay,
kind of assets that people still have to pay property tax on.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Or at least use tax, yeah. Okay, so now on to public comment, if that's all of them, on to public comment on 8.3.
We do not have any written public comment. We do not have any hands raised.
Okay, so I'll close the public comment on that. I see what happened. You sent me some slides extra last time. This is what we just went over, right? 8.3
Yes.
again. So I think we need to keep going.
This is board deliberation. If I didn't know if there's any more discussion.
Oh, are we? Right.
I'd just like to say thank you, Glorianne. Good report, and so far, so good.
Yep. Thanks, Florian. Okay, now we can go on to 8.4. Approval of the memorandum of understanding between the district, the Moraga-Orinda Fire Chiefs Officers Association for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. Approval of salary schedule effective July 1st, 2021.
Good evening, directors. I'll turn it over to the district's negotiator, Donna Williamson.
Thank you. Good evening, directors and Chief Winokur. I'm Donna Williamson from the law firm of Liebert Cassidy Whitmore. I was the chief negotiator in these negotiations, and I am presenting the staff report this evening. We're going to look at the process, the key issues in these negotiations, what our legal obligations are in this open session meeting. This process is governed by the Myers-Milius-Brown Act in the Government Code. There is a good faith negotiations requirement that the parties are required to negotiate in good faith until negotiations reach either an agreement or an impasse. In this case, the parties negotiated to an agreement which was reached on November 1st, 2021. That entailed 7 negotiations meetings between May of 2021 and October of 2021. We had regular closed sessions with your board, including 14 closed sessions where we looked at the parameters for these negotiations. Key provisions of the tentative agreement and MOU changes include number 1, a term of 3 years that expires on June 30th, 2024. For wages, in year 1, there's a 4% salary increase. In year 2, there is a 4% salary increase. And in year 3, there is a 5% salary increase. For medical benefits for current employees, the district's monthly contribution increased to the equivalent of 93% of the Kaiser rate, which includes the employee-only coverage going to $798. The employee plus 1 coverage to $1,595, and the employee plus family coverage to $2,073. For retiree medical benefits, this package includes a $100 district contribution to a retiree health savings account. And the last item is deferred compensation, $100 district increase to deferred compensation. The financial cost, fully burdened, for the actual total cost for this agreement is $193,209. Our open session process includes recognizing that the association's membership ratified the TA on October 14th, 2021. Tonight, the board is holding this public hearing to discuss the tentative agreement and vote on its adoption. The terms of this tentative agreement were the result of good faith negotiations process, which resulted in a mutually agreed upon new MOU. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So board, do we have any questions for Donna, or before I open it up to public comment? Okay, I will open this to public comment.
We do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, I will then close the public comment.
I'm sorry, we have 1 hand raised now.
Okay,
Vince Wells.
welcome, Vince.
So anyway, Good afternoon, board members and members of the public. I just wanted to, I guess what it looks like is that this contract is just moving forward from the agreement that Local 1230 made with the firefighters. There are some concerns about the amount of money going to retiree healthcare, that we think that is important, that the firefighters that put themselves on the line, that when they retire, there should be, significant support, or they should be getting the same level of healthcare that they get from, once we retire. And so I just wanted to make a comment about that because I didn't get a chance to make that comment during the approval of our contract. Retiree healthcare for those that put themselves on the line and approach the public, and have to engage with and put yourselves on the line, and especially like if you look at the pandemic and things like that, that retiree healthcare should be like a priority for employees that engage in that type of work. So I just never got a chance to add that, but I wanted to make sure that at least the board and the public for the Moraga-Orinda Fire District understood that retiree health should be a high priority from this fire board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Any other outstanding comments, Marcia?
No, we do not have any more hands raised.
I guess we should turn this back over to the board to deliberate then. I'll close the public comment period.
President Jorgens, this is Director Danziger. I'm glad we could reach a tentative agreement with the Fire Chief Officers Association. I think that these are our battalion chiefs, and I think that there's a lot of extra duties put on them. There's only 3 of them, and I think in this agreement we've taken steps to provide them with some increases, such as changing their overtime rate, vacation accruals, and the retiree health savings account, to mention a few. I'm in support of this, and I'm urging and asking all our directors to vote in favor of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Failing that, do I hear a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the district and Moraga-Orinda Fire Chief Officers Association for the period July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2024.
I'll second.
And also also the approval of the salary schedule effective July 1st, 2021.
Great. Michael, I assume you want to
I'll second that.
Okay, Marcia, you want to?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
No.
President Jorgens.
No. The motion passes. Okay, on to item 8.5, approval of the unrepresented employee handbook authorizing salary and benefits for unrepresented employees effective November 18th, 2021.
Good evening, directors. The district has 11 unrepresented employee positions. Salary and benefits for unrepresented employees are authorized in the unrepresented employee handbook, which is included as attachments A and B. The district recently completed negotiations process with its 2 labor unions. As a result of the negotiations, the district authorized the changes to the following benefits. One was the establishment of a retiree health savings account with a $100 per month district contribution. And 2 is an increase in the district contribution to deferred compensation for management positions from $50 a month to $150 per month. The unrepresented employee handbook has been updated to include these benefit changes. Additional minor administrative changes have also been made to the unrepresented employee handbook. All changes are in red in attachment A for transparency. The annual cost of the two benefits are as follows. Retiree health savings are $13,475 for 11 budgeted positions, and deferred compensation $6,000 for 5 budgeted management positions. I recommend the board approve the unrepresented employee handbook authorizing salary and benefits for unrepresented employees effective November 18th, 2021.
Okay, I guess we should open this to public comment.
We do not have any hands raised and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, I will close the public comment period then. Do we have any board deliberation on this?
Well, this is Director Danziger. I would just ask my fellow directors to vote in favor of this. I think we have excellent staff here. You know, I worked for almost 30 years in another city, and I've been around city governments, not so much district governments, but I'm really impressed by the level of competence of our staff here. I'm glad we can reward them with these small new benefits, and that's it.
Any other comments, deliberation? Do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the unrepresented employee handbook authorizing salary and benefits for the unrepresented employees effective November 18th, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, Marcia, roll call.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jorgens.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Item 8.6, the adoption of resolution 21-19 Vantage Care Retirement Health Savings RHS program.
Good evening, directors. The district recently entered into new memorandums of understanding with the bargaining units. The new MOUs included the establishment of a district retiree health savings account with a district contribution of $100 per month for all active bargaining unit members. The district is eligible to join the ICMA Vantage Care Retirement Health Savings Program. This program will allow the district to accumulate assets to pay for health insurance and out-of-pocket medical expenses for employees. Staff recommends adoption of Resolution 21-19, adopting the Vantage Care Retirement Health Savings Program.
Anybody have any questions for?
I have one question. The $25 per account per year, the district pays that? Is that correct?
Yes, the district would pay that fee.
The employees don't pay any part of that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And directors, I should reference that the represented labor groups have asked the district to delay the enrollment of their members while they work through some of the to have a better understanding of retirement health savings programs and accounts. So that while we are we'll take the board's approval so that we have this, should we be prepared to move forward rapidly. We are not ready to move forward because we are awaiting labor group indication that they are prepared to move forward once they've done their review of the program. These are elections that are made or permanent and so forth. So while we are while we're seeking board approval to enter into the contract, we're not yet ready to enroll members per section 19 of the MOU and to begin those contributions pending labor group concurrence, which we are waiting for.
So Chief, does this, Lorianne mentioned, I don't remember the exact name of the one that starts with a C, the actual company that's going to do this. and there was an alternative one. So are we generically saying we're going to set this up and go with whoever everybody decides is the right one, or is this? And I thought there was a different program for different bargaining groups.
Well, same program for all three, sir. Vantage Care. So the formerly ICMA, now Market Square, is the standard provider used by all other public employers in this area. Up until yesterday, that was our understanding was that there was concurrence moving forward with that. We received a request from a labor group for more time to consider it. Given that we do not anticipate seeing the board again until January, we thought it would be prudent to move forward with the approval of this contract, which is as of now is our recommendation for the vendor to provide it, simply because they are the vendor of choice in this area. However, if the labor groups come back with a request for a different provider, certainly we'll review that. And if all other things are equal and it is advantageous to the employers and cost neutral, or to the employees and cost neutral to the employer, then there would be no concern with that. However, there will very likely be a delay in implementation, simply because we don't intend to see the board until the third week of January.
So why don't we approve this program or another equivalent?
Because I believe, Gloria, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we need the specific contract needs to be, or the provider needs to be approved.
This resolution is basically recommended by Vantage Care, and it has to be in this exact format and so forth and go to Vantage Care. So I'm just guessing if we adopted a different company, they would probably have their own format of the resolution, would probably be different.
Okay. Why can't we pass something and give and delegate authority to the chief to make changes as necessary? You can change resolutions during the board meeting. That happens all the time.
Yes, sir. I think the question would be whether I have signature authority for the resolution, and if since the resolution in this case, as Gloria referenced, if we were to enter into a contract with a different provider, they may have a different resolution. And as I said, so we weren't aware of this is after the publication of the packet that we became aware of the concern. So we are a little bit playing catch up here. So I would recommend, from my perspective, it would either be approve the one that is in front of you now, or don't approve one, and we will come back when this issue has been resolved with the appropriate resolution for the board's adoption and signature, sir.
Okay. So Amy, you don't think there's a way to get around that and make it easy on everybody, huh?
It sounds to me like this provider requires a resolution, and it requires a resolution with the elements that are in this resolution. So if in fact we want to move forward, I think the chief's analysis is really sound here.
Okay. Wow. So they require a specific resolution. That's amazing. Okay, great. Let's, so I guess we could, though, approve this one. And if that happens to be the one everybody chooses, then we're okay.
Yes, sir. And if not, we'll regroup and come back to the board.
Okay. So any more questions and I'll turn it over to public comment otherwise. Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period then. Do we have any board deliberation on this?
We do have one hand just raised.
Okay, we'll go back.
Vince Wells.
Okay. Vince, welcome.
Yeah, I'm trying to manage between the desktop and my phone because I didn't expect to have to speak on this, but yeah, we haven't had a chance yet to, we did agree to go to a program in our last contract, but we haven't had any conversation about where we're going to go or who we're going to go with. So I would agree that this is something that we should, as of what the chief stated, that this is something that needs to come up in future conversations, because there are a lot of firms that offer this type of benefits. So we'd like a little bit more time to agree to one.
Okay, thank you. Marcia, any more comments?
We do not have any more comments.
Okay, then I'll really close it this time. Do we have any board deliberation on that then?
Yeah, President Jurgens, Director Danziger. Vince Wells just made a statement that he wanted more time so that we could agree on a vendor, basically. But is there any requirement that the district and local 1230 agree on who's going to be the vendor? I mean, we can take it under consideration, but is it something we have to mutually agree upon? I didn't understand that.
I'm not aware of whether or not there's a requirement, sir, but given the circumstances and given that it is any plan is going to be offered under the same IRS rules, and
Right.
the pricing is assumed to be identical, if not very similar, I would certainly recommend moving forward in a collaborative process with Local 1230 and the other labor groups.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was any requirement, but okay, got it.
So do we want to?
Are you recommending, Chief, that we pass this and see how it plays out, or?
Yes, sir. I would recommend passing this. We are committed. We have been involved in conversations on this topic with the labor group dating back to October 19th. And we are committed to working collaboratively on this. However, my concern becomes is if we end up back where we started, which is agreeing on this provider, if we have not passed this resolution, the implementation of the plan will be delayed for up to 2 months, resulting in reductions in contributions. I think somewhat unnecessarily just because of the timing. However, we certainly have no intention of moving forward with enrolling members until we have reached a resolution. However, should we come back to this starting point at the end, this seems like a missed opportunity to have this already taken care of. And if we don't come back to this, we will void the resolution and restart the process.
Okay.
So do I hear a motion?
I move we approve it.
Second.
Marcia?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jorgens.
Aye. Okay, the resolution passes. Now on to item 8.7. So I have a thought here. I believe it's important for us to follow the traditions and the established processes that keep our organization from being, politicized and polarized. And, the city of Harinda and the town of Moraga, and it used to be MOFD, had a process where the leadership positions were rotated among all the members over time. And in that process, the sitting VP became the next president and so forth. And based on that long-standing process, I would like to therefore nominate our current VP, Michael Donner, to be the next MOFD board president.
I second the motion.
Thank you. I accept.
Should we, I guess we need to have or should we need to have an election or a
Just
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, do we have public comments under the election of the board? I guess we do. Yes, so I guess we do. Okay, sorry.
So we do
Have any
not
public?
have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay. So we can close all of that. Now we've got the motion in the second.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just procedurally, we're in November now. I understand these, we probably won't meet in December. Does the new president, does that position take effect the 1st of January?
Yeah, that's what it says here in the.
It says that. Is that per our procedure? That it's.
Yep.
Okay. And I guess in the past, sometimes they took effect in December, but I guess that's when the previous president wasn't on the board anymore. So, okay. I just want to make sure of that. So.
Okay, got a quick question before
Okay.
we vote. Are we voting on Director Donner being president or Director Donner being president and going back to the rotation of positions?
The rotation there's nothing to vote on there, sir. The rotation was an informal collegial thing, but that's not enshrined anywhere in our rules of regulation. And I'm not aware of any action this board could take, which would bind a future board, particularly a future board post-election, that would constrain that board's ability to vote on the election of officers.
Okay, thank you.
So and all they did was nominate Director Donner. All the rest of that was the basis of my nomination. In addition to the fact I think he's a nice guy and qualified.
Thank you.
So, Marcia.
So last year, the president declared the position vacant, and then there is a motion then to nominate, and then there's a vote.
Yeah, but it's not vacant yet.
Yeah, it's different this year. 'Cause
We're electing him to be, because if we have another board meeting like the one you're trying to schedule for, you know, an intermediate board meeting, it wouldn't be effective until January 1st.
And so the motion for last year was to nominate the person as this position for calendar year 2022, and then that gets approved. So it would be nominating them for calendar year 2022.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we did. Yes.
Yes, so it was done by the acting president. So I guess you want me to.
What, do you want to restate the motion to nominating Mr. Donner for a term effective January 1st, 2022?
Sure, but that is what it said on the agenda, but sure. So I nominate Michael Donner to be the MOFD board president effective January 1st, 2022.
Second.
Now, well, do we have to have public comment again since there wasn't any last time? Okay. So now, Marcia, you can do it.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jorgens.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now we need to go on to the rest of the slate. So I guess we can.
I'll start off. I'd like to nominate Director Danziger for vice president.
The only challenge with that is when that happens, then he would be the president once again, which would make it 3 out of 4 years.
Well,
5 years.
There's an election between now and then anyway, so.
But it would still, if that did happen, it would still be.
No, because as you know, we don't have to follow that what you just talked about is about the precedent of vice presidents becoming presidents. We vote on it. It doesn't have to go that way. There's nothing in there, our rules or procedures that say the vice president has to be president.
That's correct. But
So-
it would be contrary to the processes that have been around for decades, is my only point.
Well,
Copy that. Okay. So I nominated Director Danziger.
I'll second.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Public comment?
Oh, yes. Do we have any public comment on that?
we do not have any public comment.
Okay, so I'll close the public comment. Now we have a motion and a second.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
We couldn't hear you, John.
Aye.
Marcia, I couldn't hear you.
President Jorgens.
I'm going to abstain. So the motion passes. I'm disappointed
Thank you.
in our process, that is. Nothing to do with the people, just the process. So now we go on, I guess, to treasurer.
President Jurgens, this is Director Danziger. I've had an offline email with Chief Winokur, who also spoke to our board counsel about the secretary and treasurer positions.
Okay.
Does Chief Winokur or council want me to talk about this, or do you want to talk about it?
So the question was posed today about whether a director can hold multiple positions. The Fire Protection District Law of 1987 is very clear that a director cannot hold multiple positions. It's also clear that, that several of our positions are not required, and that being secretary and treasurer. The draft updated rules of procedure that were previously presented to the board and withdrawn and will be recirculated for consideration at the January meeting would eliminate those positions as obsolete, given that the function, they're not required, and the functions associated with the title are carried out by staff. And the recommendation of staff and council is that those positions be eliminated. However, at this time, the existing rules of procedure identify them and require that they be filled. And the Fire Protection District Law of 1987 prescribes against a single director filling multiple title or multiple officer positions.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Chief.
Certainly, sir.
So I would, so with that in mind, I would nominate Director Bates for secretary.
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
Director Bates?
So do we have any public comment about that?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay. So I guess we're ready for a roll call.
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
President Jorgens?
Aye. So now we're on to treasurer.
I would like to nominate Director Jex for treasurer.
I'd second that.
Do we have any public comment or a comment from Director Jex?
Fine.
Have any public comment?
Okay, I'll close the public comment. So Marcia, you want to take a roll call?
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
President Jorgens?
Aye. I'm just going to comment, this is, in my opinion, another blatant disregard for the things that have been traditions in our community for a long time. And it happened just with 3 people that have done this, the exact same 3 people that did it before. And I think it's going to be scary for the public.
And what are you referring to? What, I don't know what you're referring to.
I think I've already made that clear.
Okay.
So we have now finished the election of the officers. We're on to the standing and ad hoc committees.
Good evening, directors. Each year, the Board of Directors appoints new committee members and district liaisons. The board presently has 2 standing committees and 1 ad hoc committee. The Audit Standing Committee consists of directors Danziger and Jex. The Finance Standing Committee consists of directors Danziger and Jorgens, and the Facilities Station 41 Ad Hoc Committee consists of directors Bates and Donner. The board currently assigns district liaisons to 5 outside agencies. Those are the Contra Costa County Fire Boards and Commissioners Association, which is Director Danziger, the Contra Costa Special Districts Association, which is Director Jex, LAFCO, which is Director Donner, Moraga Town Council is Director Jex, and the Harinda City Council is Director Jorgens. Staff recommends discussing, deliberating, and appointing new Audit and Finance Committee members, Ad Hoc Committee members, and District Liaisons to be effective January 1, 2022.
Okay, I guess we're supposed to open that to public comment first.
Do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, I got to close the comment period on that. In the past, we've done this kind of as a group, I think, but I don't care how we do it. We're not obviously sticking with anything that happened in the past anyway, so.
I would just like to recommend that we go just that kind of down the list for each one.
Okay.
Do each one separately. And
Great.
see if there's interest, maybe interest from directors to be on one. But, you know, one by one. So starting with the Audit Standing Committee.
Great.
Personally, I found it rewarding and very insightful, and I've learned a lot being on the Audit Standing Committee with Director Jex. I don't know about Director Jex if he wants to continue there. I would certainly, you know, be happy if somebody else would like to be on it. I've been on it for a couple of years now, but I'll be happy to stay if nobody else wants to be on the committee as well.
You know, I'd be happy to continue on it. Normally, it requires at least one of the members of the committee have an accounting and finance background, audit background.
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
I would support Director Jex. I mean, I've been on the committee with him. Does anybody else want to do it? Or I'll stay on it if nobody else wants to. Going once?
So do we have any other, Greg, anybody? Okay. So, gee, do we normally take votes on all these things? I guess we have to, don't we? So, okay, Marcia, do I hear a,
Okay,
I guess
so
we need to have a motion. Are we gonna have a motion for both people at once or just one?
Would recommend, sir, if there's a widespread agreement about either who's going to be on what, we could do it as a single motion at the end, sir, or we could do it individually for each appointment.
Okay, so at least we have 2 people that are willing. How's that? So now we'll move on to the next one, which I guess is going to be, we didn't list it here, did we? The Ad Hoc Committee, I guess that's the only standing committee we have, right?
Finance,
I'm sorry?
the Finance Committee.
Yeah, I don't think have we really had a finance committee, or has it been? I think we kind of did away with the finance committee because that's effectively been being done by the board.
Yes, sir. There's no requirement. The board does not have to fill it, and we certainly could roll it up.
Because that's effectively, you know, when we talk about the long range financial plan and things, we have not had a finance committee meeting that was separate from a board meeting anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so on to the Ad Hoc Committee. Well, do we want to vote on the Audit Committee and then go on to the Ad Hoc Committees, or do them all at once?
President Jorgens, how about, does anybody want to make any changes to their current position? Other committees that they're on?
I'm fine with the ones I'm on. Anybody else?
I'm fine with the ones I'm on.
we're just talking about the standing committees and Ad Hoc Committee right now, right? Just the three.
Well, the audit, the finance, well, yes,
And facilities.
and facilities.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think if we're all, nobody wants to make any changes, I make a motion that we keep them the same as they currently are.
We're here a second.
Second that.
Okay, Marcia. Well, I guess we should have public comment on those things.
And just before public comment for clarification, we are keeping the audit and finance standing committees and the facility
No,
ad hoc.
deleting the finance committee.
Okay, so we're only having the audit standing committee and the facilities Station 41 ad hoc committee.
Yep. I think later on, we're deleting the committee that did the joint Harinda Moraga MOFD thing also.
Yes, we did that part of consent.
Okay.
So we do not have any public comment at this time.
Okay, I'll close up public comment and go on to, we have a motion. So Marcia, you want to do a roll call?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex, President Jorgens.
Aye. So, okay. We didn't really talk about the liaison things though. Was that all part of that?
No, be separate.
Okay, because it's not on our agenda as a separate item, but let's keep going.
Well, separate to vote on.
It's actually not, I think it's on our agenda for that.
It's on this item, sir. It's the second part of the second part of item 8.8 is the 5 outside agency liaisons.
Okay. Great. Yes, you're right. Okay. So what are they again, Chief?
So the 5, the district currently maintains liaisons to 5 outside agencies: the Contra Costa County Fire Boards and Commissioners Association, which is currently Director Danziger; the Contra Costa Special Districts Association, which is currently Director Jex; the Local Agency Formation Committee, or LAFCO, which is currently Director Donner; the Moraga Town Council, which is Director Jex; and the Harinda City Council, which is Director Jorgens.
Okay. How do people feel about these?
I just have a question on the town council liaisons. Has there been, we haven't changed those in, you know, I don't know if we've ever changed them since I've been on the board. So I would just,
You were the one for Harinda 2 years ago, I think.
was I a first year, maybe?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I would just, for those two, I would just ask if anyone else is interested in doing them. I would just put that out there.
I'd be happy to stay on with Moraga.
Okay.
I'd be happy to stay on Harinda.
Okay, that's fine with me. I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay. Do I hear well, I guess, do I hear a motion to make all the ones the same that are there now then? Because that's, otherwise that sounds like what's happening. No motions.
I'll make a motion that we keep all members in their current committees and liaison positions for the next calendar year, 2022.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think Greg got there first. Okay. Any public comment on that?
We do not have any hands raised and we received written public comment.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Marcia, you want to do a roll call?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex, President Jorgens.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are on to 10.1 announcements. Anybody have any brief announcements about things that they use district money to go to a meeting for?
So before we move on to 10.1.
Oh, did I skip one? Sorry.
Yes,
I thought
I'm not sure if we had any committee reports.
Oh,
It's 9.1 through 9.3.
well, we didn't have a finance committee, so that was easy. And we had our audit committee report.
We did have the audit committee meeting. I commented on it earlier.
And nothing to report on Station 41.
Okay. Then on to announcements. Anybody have any announcements? Okay. Questions and informal comments? Fire chief updates.
Good evening, sir. Sorry, just pulling up my slides.
Pulling them up right now. All right. Good evening, directors. We've had another busy month. Next slide, please. On October 18th, at approximate 6 minutes after 9 o'clock, firefighters responded to a report of a structure fire at Silver Oak Terrace in North Harinda. Upon arrival, crews discovered a house with heavy fire involvement. Firefighters removed or rescued a victim from the residents who later succumbed to the injuries related to the fire. This was a joint response between MOFD and the Contra Costa Fire Protection District, sitting right at an edge where our ability to respond overlaps. This was a 4,500 square foot non-sprinklered house with at the end of a single way or a cul-de-sac in a distant portion of the district. Very challenging. Fires of this size, particularly a multi-level structure of this type, it's more of a commercial fire than a residential fire. We're grateful for the participation and support from Contra Costa County Fire, whose weight of attack was critical to us making our efforts there. We're very sorry for the loss of life, and just continue to encourage residents to ensure they have working smoke detectors, they have an evacuation plan, and they have a meetup point so that if they're evacuating, they have a point where they're going to aggregate and not be seeking each other. The cause remains under investigation. We conducted a joint after action with Contra Costa County Fire to review lessons learned. Significant fire as with any fire of this size, there are always lessons learned. The firefighters who made entry through that door in the picture on the left, to the upper right, so to the right of the window with the heavy black smoke, to the right of that is a door with heavy black smoke. Those firefighters took a significant amount of heat making that entry. Some of them suffered minor injuries, thermal injuries through their protective ensemble. So we'll continue to seek opportunities to learn from this, and always we're a learning organization. We're grateful for their response. We're very sorry and saddened by the loss of life, and do hope everyone has an opportunity to take those lessons to heart, particularly the smoke detectors, the evacuation route out of the home, and a meetup point once they're outside the home to ensure all members are able to determine their accountability. Next slide, please. On a happier note, with Halloween was back, we had residents out and about, and our engines and crews were able to get out and do some interface with folks as they were trick-or-treating, which was a great return to normalcy after the last 2 years. Next slide, please. As speaking of return to normalcy, we saw the completion of a CERT class. We graduated 20 new CERT members from the La Marinda CERT. MOFD continues to be the sponsoring organization for La Marinda CERT, and we have on-duty members, we have serving members in an off-duty status, specifically their Captain Arola, that are critical to the instruction. We remain grateful for the CERT's organization and what they do to marshal engaged and interested residents into a system that has some structure, so that we're able to harness their interest and some of the skills they've developed in advance. We've got the ability to access those if we were to have a large-scale event in the area, as well as all the non-emergent events that they provide support for. Next slide, please. On November 6th, a little before midnight, we had a solo vehicle accident on Moraga Way near the high school. We found a vehicle into a power pole with major damage to both the vehicle and the pole. This involved a rollover, obviously with a soft top Jeep. That's a particular concern.
we're able to evacuate, extricate, and then transport the patient for definitive care, and then provided support to PD as they shut down the road and PG&E came to make significant repairs to the power lines through that area. Next slide, please. We're in November, which means Movember, a cancer awareness event. The MOFPA has been, PFA, sorry, has again produced commemorative T-shirts, which are being sold to include by a district member and his family off duty. We're able to set up shop at the Canyon Brewery, and we're able to raise some significant funds. So far, we've raised $3,120 through T-shirt sales and donations from the community and firefighters. Those are going to UCSF's Pediatric Oncology Department at Children's Hospital in Oakland. And as a note, that fundraiser will be open through the end of the month. T-shirts and donations can be accepted at Station 41 for those who are interested in participating. And then on November 8th, at about little before 6, so early morning hours, we responded in support to Contra Costa County Fire Protection District for a commercial structure fire in Lafayette. We were able to provide assistance with the weight of attack, and due to the speed with which crews arrived and aggressive interior attack, the fire was limited to the structure of origin, limited exposures to the adjacent structures, which obviously with commercial impact, it doesn't take much to shut a business down. So we're glad we were able to reciprocate the aid we received from Contra Costa County in this case, and it does speak to the ongoing continued integration due to the boundary drop and integration of equipment and policies that we have with Contra Costa County, which we believe is beneficial to both organizations. And then lastly, we were able to host some new members of the Rescue One Foundation board last night to review equipment that used on our medic units. They had some questions about opportunities for experimental and new and innovative equipment, and they wanted, some of the new board members had not seen equipment that Rescue One had purchased in the past. The crew, Captain Rattery, and specifically firefighter paramedic Billy Moffitt, were instrumental in putting that on, and were gracious hosts, and were able to connect the Rescue One board members to the equipment that their efforts have provided over the years, which we are tremendously grateful for. That concludes the operations update, unless there are any questions.
I just have one, Chief. Regarding the fatal fire, working smoke detectors or no smoke detectors?
No smoke detectors, sir, that we're aware of. The house was being painted. And obviously with painting, obviously many things are taped over, covered up, or removed en masse. As I said, remains under investigation, but initial indication is that the smoke detectors had been removed for the painting operation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have a human resources update from Gloria.
Good evening. The Human Resources Manager resigned. Her last day was November 5th. We opened a recruitment for a replacement. We received 12 applicants. We held interviews. I'm pleased to inform you that Christine Russell will be returning to the district as Human Resources Manager. Her first day is this Monday, November 22nd.
Oh, that's great.
Includes the report.
I should note that Lisa, who left for a really remarkable opportunity to serve with the California State Senate. So it was a great opportunity for her. We're grateful for everything she did here. It just wasn't one of those circumstances where in good conscience I could try to talk her out of it, because it was such a great opportunity for her to move on. We're grateful for everything she did, and we're certain we'll continue to see great things of her in her future endeavors. And the sting of that is certainly buffered by the fact that Christine's coming back, and we're getting the band back together, so to speak.
All right, that's great.
Okay, next, Mary will provide a finance update.
Good evening, directors. I have a brief finance report. Next slide, please, Marcia. I'm going to start with the strike team reimbursement update. Outstanding receivable to date for fiscal year 2020-2021 is $894,000. Estimated strike team activity receivable to date for 2021-22 based on F42s is $970,000. So we have a total outstanding receivable of $1.8 million. 2021, 2022 figures are based on F42s. This says that we received 11 invoices from OES confirming the recent activity, but I just this week received several. So we have received about 70% of the invoices expected, and that's pretty rapid turnaround for OES. That means that the payment is in process. So that's good news.
Leave that slide. This is Director Jacks. The estimated amounts, is that through, when you're talking about 22, that's through fiscal 22, June of?
Yes, that's based on all the activity I've received to date, all the F42s for any activity after July 1.
Okay.
We did receive from OES about $65,000 worth of payments in October. The last payment was on October 25th. Next slide, please, Marcia. And the other thing we're working on payroll is we did a retro benefit change per the new MOU. Those were completed for the November 10th payroll. And for the December 10th payroll, we will be working on the retro payroll increases per the same MOU. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. And Fire Marshal with the prevention update.
Good evening, directors. Happy to report with the change in weather and the rain we've had, things have slowed down a little bit for prevention, allowed us to kind of catch our breath. We've noticed a slowdown in the complaints. Our property transfer inspections still remain pretty steady. I added another line for you for the exterior hazard inspections, number of open cases. We have 178 open cases remaining. That combines complaints, property transfer inspections, and our targeted enforcement areas. Nothing to report on the hearings. Chipping remains the same. We haven't done any district funded chipper. Had a really good meeting with the superintendent of the Moraga School District to go over questions they had in regards to their inspections. We will be following up at the first of the year with them. They asked for some additional time, assuring us they were going to fix all the noted violations that we had. Still working with Harinda for the same thing, go back and re-inspect in January. They had several questions as well, so we're working with them on that. Still working on the apartments and the R2 inspections. Getting those failed up to a pass status. We have seen a little bit of a drop off in our plan review. Current projects, working on the complaint backlog inspections, closing that 178 open cases, the Pinehurst fuel break, prevention staff supported Captain Ford and Engine 43 and the CAL FIRE engine doing some pile burning on the Pinehurst fuel break. Plan for the quarter is to prep for our Tunnel East Bay Hills grant, fuel mitigation specialist training. In January, we will start working on our new fire code update. So I got a whole list of stuff, notes written down, start compiling that and getting those into the specific chapters and work with Chief Winokur to get that ready out for the board and the town and the city. That's all I have to report. Happy to answer any questions.
This is Director Jacks. These property transfer inspections, is there a fee that we recover for each of those?
We
haven't
set. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, sorry, go right ahead.
So as you may recall from when we formed it, there was concern specifically from several members of the public and the Harinda City Council about action that the fire code would enable that would derive new fees and increase the cost of a property transfer. So when we go out at the resident's request, there is a fee for that included in our fee schedule. However, we did include the self-report function, and the vast majority of the cases are coming in via self-report, whereby the resident uses the link on our website. It's prominently featured. They submit 5 pictures from the requisite locations. We review those. If there's any feedback required, we provide it. We've seen a steady decrease in the amount of feedback required as an ecosystem is built up around this requirement. The realtors I'm tempted to give them all MOFD polo shirts and have them act as fuel mitigation specialists on their days off, because they are very savvy to the requirements of the fire code. And there are several fuel mitigation contractors who are now specializing in this and are very aware of the requirements of the fire code and are acting as excellent surrogates, which reduces the number of visits that are required on our part. We have a very small number of folks who have wanted us to come out with the fee. And the vast majority of folks using this system have been doing it via the self-reporting online, where our folks can click through it in a matter of minutes and close those cases out when the work's been done.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
This Director Danziger, I have a question. A resident emailed me just the other day. I told them to contact you, fire prevention, but they wanted, and I was curious because I really didn't know the answer. What's the status of the ambassador program that we started?
The ambassador program's working very well, sir. We
Okay.
had a meeting with the current ambassadors a couple months back because it is a pilot program. Heard from them, it was a resounding, yes, let's continue the program and expand the program. So we will be working in January, February to conduct new training to bring on a new group of ambassadors and try to expand that program.
Okay, so currently, if a resident wants to have an ambassador come to their residence, they go online and they can request that?
No, sir. There's no, because it was a pilot program.
Yeah.
The FACAs who are currently enrolled are limited to their neighborhood. We wanted to start it with folks working in and around their neighborhood based
Okay.
on word of mouth and working with their friends and neighbors, so to speak, to get a better sense of it. So for someone who wants information, the absolute best bet is to jump on our website, take a look at the number of informative either videos or written material that are posted there. And from that, it's a rather formulaic application of what the fire code requirements are on any individual parcels.
Okay, so let me just get this clear. The specific person that I know pretty well lives on El Toyano. They knew about the program. They wanted to know, how do I get an ambassador to come to my home? So the answer to them is you can't, or
That's
I'm
correct.
not sure. If they're not part of, what if they're not part of the Firewise group?
There's no connection between the FACA program
Okay.
and Firewise. It all has to do with whether they're one of the folks who are participating in the pilot program, live in your neighborhood, and
Okay.
are going out and conducting, essentially doing house calls.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I got to ask one more time because I see this person tomorrow. I know they're going to ask me again.
Yes, sir. So the answer is if they're not aware of an ambassador in their neighborhood, and there are several in El Toyano, but it depends on where.
Okay,
If they're not aware of an ambassador in their neighborhood, there is no option for them to request a visit. The program is not scaled at that size, and that was how it was presented with the
Okay.
pilot phase to the participants. It was a your neighborhood and we weren't signing them up to travel around the district to visit other folks.
got it. Okay, and the only other thing I'd say about that program is Fire Marshal said they're going to be doing more training probably in the first of the year. I would be interested in attending the training if that's appropriate, and if you could let me know about it, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, happy to do so.
I would too. That'd be great.
Yeah, maybe just let us all know.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Fire Marshal.
And then lastly, for fire chief updates, today we received the final contract from the state of California for the $6.3 million Tunnel East Bay Hills fuel break. So that's great news. That means they sent us a number of changes, obviously, and we did not know the final award amount. So the project had to be tinkered with to match the changes they directed and to match the allocated amount. The fact that contract's been approved and came back was the last hurdle. And as Marcia contacted you earlier, we're querying the board about availability for a special meeting on December 1st or December 8th to accept that grant, which will allow us to begin expending funds and start moving forward. At the time of that meeting, we'll present a more detailed explanation of the project to include the final project map based on the resources provided. And then we'll turn to on what's going very likely to be a lengthy environmental review process before we can get started with actually executing fuel mitigation, as this project does not come with the CEQA waiver that the North Harinda Shaded Fuel Break did. And some portions of the project are not going to be working on East Bay Mudland, where we fall under their habitat management plan. And therefore we will be required either to pursue a negative declaration or a limited EIR review, working with qualified biologists. So there's going to be more lead up on this one than there was last time because of the manner in which it was awarded.
Great news.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Okay.
No communications received. We've received that are significant. We've received a number of cards specifically from residents who either former residents of the district who are now living in the Lake Tahoe Basin, or folks who have property there, expressing their gratitude for the deployment of district members and resources in support of the Caldor fire. I've had a number of those, but no other communications received that are of note.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So any future agenda items?
President Jurgens, yes, it's Director Danziger. I do have one.
Okay,
For the agenda in January, I'd like to see an item in 2022 is going to be the 25th anniversary of MOFD. And I'd like to start discussions on how to appropriately celebrate that. And to be able to talk about it, I'd like to see it on the agenda.
okay, great. Okay, any other items for anybody? I think that's, do we have any public comment on any of those items?
We do not have any hands raised, and we've not received any written public comment.
Okay, so I'll close the comment period on items 10.1 through 10.5.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Marcia?
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Danziger,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy holidays.
Yep.
Director Jex,
Aye.
President Jurgens.
Aye, and happy holidays to all of you and happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye-bye.